Hello and welcome back to another Magic the Gathering EDH deck tech idea. Today we are taking a look at Elsha, Threefold Master. It is a 3 mana 1/1 with Trample and Prowess, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 white monk creature tokens with Prowess. From the commander itself, it is pretty clear that this is a tokens matters deck, and we will play it in a proactive way to get a bunch of prowess triggers and create a bunch of monk tokens as fast as possible. Due to that, we will ramp in the early game, and along the way we will bring out a few powerful artifacts and enchantments that will help us with our game plan strategy. For example, we play Brotherhood Regalia, a 2 mana artifact equipment, and equipped creature as War 2 is an assassin in addition to its other types and can't be blocked. Its equip costs for legendary creatures is 1 mana, which is really helpful in our strategy, and yes, it does negate Elsha's trample mechanic if it can't be blocked, but we don't care about that because we want to create a bunch of tokens and then go for our final overrun effect. Another enchantment that is extremely powerful in this deck is Renewed Solidarity, a 3 mana enchantment, and as it enters, choose a creature type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+0, and of course we will choose Monk as a creature type, and at the beginning of your end step, for each token you control of the chosen type that entered this turn, create a token that's a copy of it. This enchantment will get out of hand really quickly in this deck, and you should definitely have some protection ready because your opponents will try to remove this one, as otherwise it will win you the game. Due to the fact that we win with combat damage, we also wanna zerg our opponents down with cards like Impact Tremors, a 2 mana enchantment, and whenever a creature you control enters, this enchantment deals 1 damage to each opponent. We play a similar version with a nice Anthem effect, War Leader's Call, a 3 mana enchantment, and creatures you control get +1/+1, and whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, War Leader's Call deals 1 damage to each opponent. A card that came with the same set as Elsha Threefold Master is Frostcliff Siege, a 3 mana enchantment, and as it enters, choose Jeskai or Temur. If you choose Jeskai, whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card, and if you choose Temur, creatures you control get +1/+0 and have Trample and Haste. Both of these can be extremely helpful, and you will have to choose according to your current situation. To never run out of gas, we play Whirlwind of Thought, a 4 mana enchantment, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, draw a card. Due to the fact that Elsha is prowess and we wanna get a bunch of triggers before it connects, we play a bunch of small cantrips like Psychotic Fury, a 2 mana instant, and target multicolored creature gains double strike until end of turn and you draw a card. This card will replace itself, and if Elsha stays unanswered with double strike, you will already create a bunch of monk tokens for your following turn. To make Elsha unblockable, we also play Artful Dodge, a 1 mana sorcery, target creature is unblockable this turn. What I like about this card is that it has flashback for 1 mana, so you can reuse it in your following turn to basically net a card because you reuse this one from your graveyard. We play Slip Through Space, a 1 mana sorcery with Devoid, and target creature can't be blocked this turn and you draw a card. It really helps that those cards replace themselves and help us with our strategy, so we also play Blazing Crescendo, a 2 mana instant, target creature gets +3/+1 until end of turn, and you exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn you may play that card. For even more evasion and replacement, we play Leap, a 1 mana instant, target creature gains flying until end of turn and you draw a card. We also play cantrips like Opt, a 1 mana instant, you scry 1 and draw a card. If it happens that we have to play the game from behind, we can play alternative creatures that also act as alternative win cons. For example, Bria, Riptide Rogue, a 4 mana 3/3 with prowess, and other creatures you control have prowess, and as it is written on the text, if a creature has multiple instances of prowess, each triggers separately. And last but not least, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. Another Anthem effect comes from Belmore, Battle Mage Captain, a 2 mana 1/3 with flying, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain Trample until end of turn. If you want to keep reusing non-creature cards, you can also play Narset Enlightened Exile, a 4 mana 3/4, and creatures you control have prowess. Furthermore, when she attacks, exile target non-creature non-land card with mana value less than Narset's power from a graveyard and copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Another cheap Anthem creature is Leonin Lightscribe, a 2 mana 2/2 with Magecraft, so whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. A totally over-the-top card is Veyron, Voice of Duality, a 3 mana 2/2 with Magecraft, so whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Veyron gets +1/+1 until end of turn. It also has a very powerful replacement effect, because if you casting or copying an instant or sorcery spell cause the triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. And just as with a bunch of other cards in this deck, if Veyron stays unanswered, you will win the game with this card. Just as with Monastery Mentor, a 3 mana 2/2 with prowess, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess. By this point it should be really clear what we are trying to accomplish in this deck. We want to cast a bunch of non-creature spells to power up Elsha and also play helpful creatures that support this strategy, and from then on we want to go for a final win. So if you want to win more, you get it. We play Full Throttle, a 6 mana sorcery, and after this main phase there are 2 additional combat phases. At the beginning of each combat this turn, untap all creatures that attack this turn. Due to us slinging a bunch of cheap spells together, we also play Haze of Rage, a 2 mana sorcery with buyback for 2 mana, and creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn, and what is even more relevant is that it has Storm. So this card can definitely act as a game finisher, because the more spells you cast, the more powerful Haze of Rage becomes. As you have seen earlier, we play cards like Impact Tremors or also War Leader's Call, so we also gotta play Perforos, God of the Forge, a 4 mana 6/5 with Indestructible, and as long as your devotion to red is less than 5, Perforos isn't a creature. What's relevant is its triggered ability. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Perforos deals 2 damage to each opponent. It also has a nice mana sink. For 3 mana, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. And another over-the-top card that came with Tarkir Dragonstorm is Elspeth Stormslayer, a 5 mana 5 loyalty planeswalker, and if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. Her +1 creates a 1/1 white soldier creature token. A 0 ability is the ability that you want to go for because you put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain flying until your next turn. And her -3 says destroy target creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater. As with many cards in this deck, if Elspeth stays unanswered, she might win you the game with a very high chance, so always make sure to have protection ready when you commit those cards onto the battlefield. Alright guys, these were a few cards that I would play in Elsha, Threefold Master. Make sure to check out my full deck list in the notes below. Let me know which cards you would add to the deck, which legendary creature I shall feature next, and then I would say see you on the next one. Goodbye guys.